if you trace back many, many times, there's been an atrocity, and that has forced the hand of people who, until that point, had been rather ambivalent about, taking the necessary action that they should be taking. The atrocity has concentrated their mind on what's happened, and as a result, they then take action. Now, what we must hope is that the sacrifice these poor people have made by being murdered essentially by the Russians will lend itself to the West waking up and going, this war is just not going to end.
At least 51 people have been killed today in the Kharkiv region following a Russian attack on a cafe where people had gathered for a memorial service. It appears to be one of the biggest civilian death tolls in a single Russian strike since the start of the war. This is a significant death toll, a really awful death toll. And as one of President Zelensky's advisors said today, there's no military logic behind this blast, is there?
No. This is just an atrocity that's been committed by the Russians. Now, they will possibly argue that it was a mistaken missile rather than something deliberate. But the point is the same. Why are missiles flying into Ukrainian villages? It's because Russia has launched a war of aggression against Ukraine. So it doesn't, in a sense, matter whether it was a deliberate targeting of civilians or an accidental one. The effect is the same. Russia is murdering civilians. That's how this war is being conducted. It's been conducted in that way from day one. There's been no attempt to minimize civilian casualties. Russia is guilty of war crimes. That's what this indicates.
Yeah, the humanitarian impact here is incredibly serious. What do you expect will happen next? We know that Kharkiv, the Kharkiv region is constantly pummeled, basically, constantly under attack. Both sides, really weighing in on each other here. Is there a next stage to this? Will this provoke a response from Ukraine?
Well, it may provoke a response from Ukraine, but the more interesting response will surely be from Ukraine's allies. Because there's a most awful phenomenon in international conflicts, which is called essentially action by atrocity. And if you trace back many, many times, there's been an atrocity, and that has forced the hand of people who, until that point, had been rather ambivalent about, taking the necessary action that they should be taking. The atrocity has concentrated their mind on what's happened, and as a result, they then take action. Now, what we must hope is that the sacrifice these poor people have made by being murdered essentially by the Russians will lend itself to the West waking up and going, this war is just not going to end until Ukraine gets the equipment it needs, the support it needs to drive the Russians back and out.
Okay. Let's talk about two statements from Vladimir Putin today. The Russian president says that Russia have tested nuclear-powered missiles and declined to rule out testing a nuclear explosion. He's also spoken about the plane crash that killed Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, saying it was caused by hand grenades detonating inside the aircraft, not from an exterior missile attack. Two very different things to make a statement on, of course. Should we talk about the plane crash and the hand grenades first?
Well, yes. I mean, look, you can't trust anything that comes out of Moscow on this subject, of course. But the reality is, okay, maybe there were hand grenades on the plane. Maybe it was an accident, or maybe Putin had figured out a way to detonate the hand grenades himself. I mean, there are all kinds of possibilities. The fact that the plane came down in this way, or may have come down in this way, doesn't take us away from the fact that Putin and Prigozhin were on the outs. It served Putin's purposes to have him knocked off, and in a sense, again, the reality of what happened we'll probably never know, because we don't have any independent ways of investigating.
Why is he still talking about it, though, Putin? Why hasn't he just sort of swept it aside? It's done now, or is he just sort of stoking things up, reminding us that a very, at one point, revered army chief, and not officially army, of course, but a very revered figure at one point is not an asset that President Putin is afraid to dispose of, if that is indeed what happened.
It sort of serves two purposes. First is that, basically, which is to highlight again, I got rid of him, or nudge, nudge, wink, wink. That's what happened. The other thing, though, related to that is basically if you consider, on the one hand, he's happy he's gone. On the other hand, he likes to present a position often to the Russian people to say, well, I didn't do these things. I mean, I did. but I didn't. And the Americans are lying to you again. They said it was hit by it, and I've got proof it wasn't. So in a sense, even that is turned into a propaganda campaign for him.
Yes. What about the issue of the nuclear missile? So tested a nuclear-powered missile doesn't rule out testing nuclear explosion. Is this, again, more sort of propaganda, more stoking of the fire from President Putin?
Yeah, yes, totally. I mean, again, okay, so he's tested a missile, fine. The reality is, were he to actually undertake a nuclear test, and obviously Russia hasn't done this for a long time, then that would be a kind of a seismic moment. I think the international community would look askance. China would look askance at that as well. I think one of his key sort of allies in this battle, and it would be taking things to a new level. So I think that his propaganda benefit, he's saying, I'm still here, I'll do what I have to do. I would be surprised if he actually did that, unless he felt again he was being pressured quite severely.
Look, thank you so much for speaking to us. Always very good to catch up with you. Alan Mendoza, Chief Executive of the Henry Jackson Society. Have a good evening. Thank you.